absence. I've just been told that there aren't any. That's if anyone knows anything different than that. I haven't done a count, so I have to check whether everyone's here or not. Item 3, declarations of interest. Councillor Goodeve.
For the neighbourhood plans, I think it's probably best that I stay out of the discussion given my role at East Herts. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So item 4, to confirm as correct record the minutes of the meeting held on the 14th of December, which we saw previously when they came to the full council meeting. Are members happy to accept those minutes? Have a show of hands. Good, thank you. So moving on to the papers, and I think there's a slight problem with this agenda set in that we haven't got any page numbers, unless that's just my set. So we will, but we've got the paper letters. So we'll manage on that basis. But I obviously won't call out paper numbers unless I'm the only person that hasn't got paper numbers. Okay, so paper A is the action plan. I think in the main, these are items that are fairly straightforward or that we are dealing with on this as part of this agenda. Councillor Dar, you're on mute.
So I see that the Sustainable Travel Town is closed for now. I mean, I would like to explore ways in which the Bengio neighbourhood plan and the things that are in there around transport could be continued and actioned. And in particular, I see 20 miles an hour as really popular on Bengio Street and Wades Mill Road, and it's come up from residents recently in correspondence. And I suspect it's really popular in other neighbourhood plans. Like, I haven't looked at Seals, but I wouldn't be surprised if it has come up on the surveys in Kingsmead. And so as I see it, the options are to put a motion forward to support 20 miles an hour, and whether it goes through as something for Bengio, whether it goes through as something for the whole town. But I think we need to progress these individual actions, even if the Sustainable Travel Town bid is not going to go through at the moment because it's been won by another town.
Okay, so certainly this doesn't stop, that we haven't been successful at this stage doesn't stop us supporting other things. Clearly on the main, a lot of these things are not in our, we can't deliver them, but we can certainly indicate where we might support other activities. Councillor Goodeve.
I think it's important not to give up hope of becoming a sustainable travel town, and the County Council have undertaken to continue to work with both the Town Council and the County Council to work towards that objective.
Yes, as I said, this certainly isn't the end of us doing things that support sustainable travel, and I think we do that in a variety of ways. This was clearly one sort of collective project, but it doesn't mean that either but in a variety of ways. As I say, this is most things are not going to be within the gift of the Town Council to be able to actually deliver, but we can certainly support and look for opportunities. So, Joseph, were you unmuting to say something there, or were you?
Sorry?
Are you going to say something? You unmuted, Joseph. I wondered if you were going to say something.
I unmuted in case I needed to say something,
okay.
But I don't need to at this moment.
I'm being too alert to that. Councillor Dar.
So I have actually written to Joseph to ask about how I can explore putting forward a 20 mile per hour resolution, to explore how we all feel about that. And I was keen on that. The County Council have actually made 20 miles per hour a lot harder recently with their new traffic management strategy. And, representing Bengio, I'm keen that I forward the views of the people who elected me to sit on the Town Council, and traffic was a huge issue in the neighbourhood plans, and unfortunately there wasn't as much scope in the neighbourhood plans to take action as we wished. And I would be very happy for Sustainable Travel Town to continue to be explored, and maybe we're successful at a future point. But 20 miles per hour is something quite simple, quite immediate. It's really popular. 71% of people in British Attitudes social surveys support 20 miles an hour. So I do feel there's something we should explore together to see if we can support a resolution to say it's something we want, whether it's for the town of Hertford or for Bengio, the bits that have already been mentioned in the neighbourhood plan, that it is in the action plan, which I've pulled up and looking at now, that to look at 20 miles an hour speed on Bengio Street and Sacombe Road.
Yeah. Yeah, well, as you know, there are a number of 20-mile-an-hour limits in parts of areas, which are parts of Hertford already, which have been a result of work by councillors over the years. So I'm sure that there will be people will be happy to consider different to other areas to add to that and support. So we can, take that forward in the future. And there's certainly sustainable travel towns are. We will see what happens now with Stevenage, Letchworth and Royston and how that plays out, and I guess how well that goes will depend on, we might have an input into how quickly other towns get added to that. Joseph, is there anything you'd like to add?
Certainly in relation to the process, obviously if and I'll be writing to Councillor Dar to explain in writing what I'm about to say, but there certainly is an opportunity for any councillor to put a motion forward to full council, and I'm sure, given the comments already being shared this evening, it would have a candid discussion would follow, and then the council could come to a view on how it responded to a motion that is tabled. While I'm speaking, I noticed Councillor Deering's got his hand raised, if that's not easy to spot.
I'm sorry, there's lots of people now. Councillor Deering.
Thank you, Joseph, very much. I think all I'd say on 20 mile an hour issue, which is obviously something that lots of residents talk about, is that, without being funny, I think before we take any resolutions or whatever anywhere, I think it's quite important that we do all understand the issue in the same way. So I'd be open to there being some form of conversation internally, whether that's at a DNL meeting or outside a DNL meeting. But I think we all need to have the same understanding of what the rules of engagement are and how it all works. Otherwise, I think we're just we'd be moving forward without all being fully and equally informed.
So maybe this is something that we could perhaps look to set up a meeting with somebody who can give us a bit more information on what this entails and so that we're all up to speed on it a bit more.
If I may, sorry, Councillor.
Sorry, Joseph. That's the sort of thing that I would think would be very sensible. This fills quite a lot of my county council post bag, and there is quite a lot of learning to go through. And it may be that Councillor Dar's, completely on top of it, but I just think it's important that we all have the same understanding before we sort of set off in any particular direction of travel.
I was just going to, if I may, Chair, I was just going to suggest if I can liaise with colleagues at the County Council, and if they've got some availability, I can push around an invitation for an informal discussion on 20 mile an hour and processes, if that would be helpful to committee and other councillors, of course.
Yeah.
Can I add, Chair? I think another ingredient in the equation is the attitude of the police, which is very often not brought to the front. Joseph, whether you choose to bring the police in, as it were, as part of the initial discussion, or only after we've heard somebody from the County Council just talk us into it, leave that entirely up to you. But they've got quite a big part to play in all of this.
Yeah, that might be helpful in terms of us being sort of aware of all the angles as we take it forward.
Yeah. And also, sorry, Chair, the very last thing I'll say, I apologise for doing this in bits, but the County Council in the recent budget has made some money available for 20 mile an hour schemes. Off the top of my head, I can't remember how much it is, but it's a 7-figure sum, which is intended to go towards 20 mile an hour schemes. Of course, that applies to the entirety of Hertfordshire County, which is a big place, but it's not quite right to say that County Council have recently made things more difficult as regards speed. They've definitely made some money available in relation to 20 mile an hour.
Okay, thank you. And perhaps given we did go through with we put the bid in for Sustainable Travel Town, it might be that we're sort of slightly one step ahead in trying to secure any funding for bits of it, given we haven't got the whole thing at the moment. Okay, if that's okay, if nothing else on paper A from anybody, we will move on. I assume there are no questions or statements from members of the public.
Correct.
Thank you. Paper B is the Town and Tourist Information Centre report, which is primarily an update, but we do need to take a decision as well in respect of Sunday opening next year. So clearly the Town and Tourist Information Centre has not been open over the last, I've lost track of time now, couple of more than 2 months possibly, in terms of open to the public, but it has been continued to operate and answer inquiries, and the online shop is now up and running on the website, and they have started to take orders through that, so that people can go and collect them, or I believe they can be delivered as well. Is that, Melissa's nodding, yes. So obviously this outlines activities in a not entirely normal time, but the services have continued to be available. Is there anything that anybody wanted to, before we move to the Sunday aspect? Councillor
Yes, I'd like to say
sorry,
something.
Councillor.
I'd like to say something, please.
Okay, Councillor Lynch.
I just wonder, has it gone by the wayside, or have we still got in mind a review of the location, which is quite an extensive amount of money that it costs to have that location? And are we really making the best of what we have got, or what we can do from that? Because there needs to be a balance struck here. And I know it's been difficult with the year that we've just had, but before that, this was very much on the agenda, whereby it was felt that it was an extensive amount of money, too much in some ways, for the location that we have actually placed them. And I just wondered if there was still in mind any idea or any means that we would review or look for another location. That's all. That's just simply my question.
Okay, so we're obviously tied into a lease at the moment, and this was we chose the location after considerable thought and work on it. I think there are still, clearly at the moment it's not being utilised to its full effect. I was actually had a short meeting with Catherine earlier today, and did talk to her about the potential for utilising some of her background in the charity sector, to whether she can help us move on the volunteer opportunities that we've tried to do a bit more through the TTIC for. So that might be something that we can be doing a bit more with. In terms of the lease, I don't know. I mean, this isn't something that we were bringing to this committee, so I don't know whether officers have that information to hand. Joseph, is that?
What would you like to know about the lease?
Well, I think Councillor Lynch wants to know when it ends, possibly.
Well, we signed for 10 years,
yeah.
And we've been there 3.5 years now.
Okay.
Yeah. But what I would say is, I mean, it's a matter of public records, and I'm not breaking any confidences saying the annual rent for the shop unit is £16,000 per annum, which was £4,000 per annum more than the rather tucked away former premises are on Market Square. So it's I would suggest that that's not a fundamental determinant of the overall situation in relation to the TTIC. And as the chairman has said, the council did look hard at alternative locations, etc., and we're pleased to secure the current premises at the time because of its visible location, really. Yeah. Thank you.
So it's making the best of the opportunity that premises gives to us, which clearly is a challenge at the moment. But I think, we can certainly continue to make sure we maximise its use. Councillor Bolton, then Councillor Barber.
Thank you.
I wasn't going to ask about the lease, so I don't know if Councillor Barber's following up on the lease. I was going to talk about the report.
So no, I wasn't going to talk about the lease, no.
Okay. I just wanted to say well done to the officers, because considering the year we've had, I think they've done awfully well, and there's lots of good ideas. I like the idea of the virtual tours. I think it's amazing how much money they raised for the Cards for Good Causes, considering they weren't open for very long. And I just think I'd like to acknowledge the amount of work that's gone in, considering the awful year we've had. That was it.
Thank you. Yes, no, absolutely agree. Councillor Barber.
All I was going to say was, Madam Chairman, is the fact we did talk about possibly looking, when the redevelopment of the Harp Theatre is possibly maybe incorporated into that, in those plans, didn't we? Because we talked about the ideal place would be to have it in a place that is open, a lot of the time, and whether there would be any room in that. But obviously, we've not moved on the redevelopment of the Harp Theatre yet.
Yeah, and in the more shorter term, we talked about the theatre taking space on a temporary basis at the TTIC, but obviously all this has been delayed somewhat. Councillor Deering.
Yeah, just coming back to the lease. I mean, the next question, Joseph, is there a break point in the lease? Because, you know, if this conversation is to happen, it needs to happen at the right time, not, you know, 18 months too early or 18 months too late.
To answer your question, no, there's a rent review after 5 years, but there's no break point.
So just to come back to John's point, I mean, how realistic is a conversation about relocating the TTIC, or are we actually locked into this lease until the end of its present term?
But we are locked in, and I would advise that the council thinks very carefully about looking for alternative accommodation. The council did invest quite a lot of money in upgrading the unit we're currently using in terms of furniture and display cabinets and so on and so forth. Because it's whilst it's £16,000 a year is £16,000 a year of public money, it's a small overall factor in the operational cost of the TTIC, and I'm just wondering where better. I mean, obviously, if councillors have got other locations in mind, then that'd be interesting to hear them. But I would, and the cost and the disruption to the service as well of moving, etc., a number of reasons which I think would need to be carefully considered before any sort of progress is made on considering a possible different location for the TTIC.
Yeah, I mean, for the record, I'm hugely supportive of where we are. A lot of work went into it at the time. A number of members were involved. I know not everybody was at that time, but it's making the most of the opportunity that site gives us. Councillor Barber.
I was just going to add to what Councillor Deering was saying about a break within the rental of it, and maybe we could just look at that. We're not actually asking anything. We're just saying, is there something there we could look at? Plus the fact, obviously, you've got all the situation within the town where you've got various units coming up, and there could be a possibility that you could get something else for slightly cheaper. But also, I thought it was more than 16,000 when we looked at it. I thought it was more like 21 or 22 or something like that.
No,
where the came from.
Sorry. The rentals 60. The actual rent on the unit is 16,000. There are other costs that go on top of that, which would be incurred in other premises, which would be insurance, whatever water rates are payable, whatever electricity is payable, those sorts of utilities, which wouldn't be peculiar to the TTIC. The actual lease agreement, the rental for the unit is 16,000 a year.
I just don't know where I got the over 20,000 from.
Probably a combination of some of the things I've just listed, I think.
Maybe, I don't know. I just thought it was 21 and then extra bits on top. So it was all.
Well, the extra bits you talk about, utilities, perhaps best thing to call them. Is there a monitoring force on that? For instance, whenever the bills come in, are we seeing that it's excessive or it's under, or it's being monitored? That's all I'm asking.
If I may, Madam Chair, it's stronger than that, Councillor Lynch. We've actually changed providers for our telecoms, printers, etc. over the last couple of years to push down those costs? It's a very fair question, and it is monitored, and action has been taken recently to push down such costs for the very reasons I'm sure lead to your question.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Right, so unless there's anything else more general, we need to make we need to look at options on Sunday opening. So as you might remember, we did open, we'd agreed around, I guess, this time last year to open, or probably earlier, on a trial basis on Sundays in August, and that did happen, but clearly in very unusual times. Councillor Bolton.
Yeah, it was unusual, but I think it worked really well, because there were a lot of people walking around in August, and so they liked going in and having their facility open, especially since the museum, I think, was opening on a Sunday as well, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah.
So personally, I would be very much in favour of doing that again and having it open on a Sunday. I mean, my preferred option is option 4. 10 till 4 with having 2 officers, because I think that's better than having lone working, but that's my preference.
And that option also means that it would continue to be open all the time, rather than close when there's a break. So does anyone have an alternative view on this? I suppose
no, I'd be happy to second that proposal.
Okay, thank you. So can I see all those in favour of option 4 for the opening of the TTIC on Sundays in August? Okay, thank you very much. That's everybody. Okay, so if that's everything on that report, we will move on to paper C. This is the update on the events. Now, since this report was written, the government's roadmap document has been published, which does give us a sort of framework, hopefully, to be able to run events in this year, but probably with some tweaks. As the report references, the next COVID events group is a week today, 2 weeks today. When we'll consider the first of the Cars at the Castle event, which may involve a date move, but officers are working on that report, and that will be circulated to all members for consideration and comments. Otherwise, I think this report updates on what has happened as far as has been possible. So is there anything that anyone would like to? Councillor Bolton and Councillor Brady.
Was that me first? Sorry.
Yes, I think so.
Yep.
Okay. Well, a couple of things. Again, to congratulate officers on the initiative. Such a difficult time, and I think they've done really well. I know, Melissa, you particularly spent a lot of time trying to work things out, and I think that the community have really appreciated all the trails and things. So thank you for that. On the item 3.3, where they had the £50 to spend offer, it says here that 174 entries were made into the competition. What happened to them? Did somebody actually win it, or was it abandoned? What happened to it, please?
Melissa, can you update on that?
Yes, absolutely. So we had 174 entries, of which 5 winners were selected. Was it 5 winners? Yes. So they all won a £50 voucher to spend at a Hertford retailer, and they were delighted. We're actually in the process of trying to gather some information from the winners, and we'll put together a press release about how they spent their money and a bit of a case study on each of those retailers as well. So there will be something coming out in the near future.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Okay, and Councillor Brady.
Oh, I just wanted to reinforce what Rosemary said. Thank you very much, Melissa and the other officers who organised all the wonderful events. I think the Christmas in Hertford felt really Christmassy because of your efforts, and I know my range of grandchildren really loved all the trails, so thank you very, very much.
Okay, thank you. Yes, certainly. It seems a long time ago already, but there was a lot going on even in the times. Okay, anything further on that? Otherwise, we will note this report. And then the next item is paper D, which is town centre activities excluding events. Again, and this report slightly, things have moved on slightly. So on the Love Hertford Awards, the first stage of that, the awards, which is businesses entering, has concluded, but we're delaying a little now the public votes and then the awards event, because essential retailers won't be able to open until hopefully the 12th of April. So by delaying it, hopefully it puts everybody on a slightly more level playing field in terms of encouraging both people to vote for them, and hopefully it will be a good initiative to be taking place when at the sort of early stages of everyone reopening again. So this is again is a report to note. So and this covers activities. I think we're having some frustrations with the Wi-Fi still, but hopefully once we get out of lockdown, it will be possible to get those sorted again and get the system working fully. Because as the report sets out, unfortunately some of the Wi-Fi hubs routers have been removed and need replacing now. So unless there's anything further on that from anybody, we will note that report. Thank you. So paper E is the Hertford Heritage Trail, and this sets out a few things for us to consider. So this was when we first established the Hertford Heritage Trail, which has quite a large number of plaques that are on buildings around the town. It was agreed that we would have a look perhaps every year, every couple of years, to introduce a small number of additional plaques. So this explores whether we still want to do that, and if so, how we want to go about doing it, and also whether there are additional things that we want to do to enhance the trail through perhaps making information more available in different ways. Is there anything that anybody wants to sort of kick off with a way of comments on this? Councillor Dar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think these ideas are really good. I think anything we can do to add to bringing people into the town is a really good move, and doing what we can to support businesses at the moment.
Thank you. Anyone else? I mean, so my view is probably that I think it would be good to go out and use the opportunity to go out and ask for public views on whether there are buildings that people think we should add. We've got a couple of suggestions already that have been sort of in the bank for a while, I think, since the trail was sort of set up. But it might be nice to consider those alongside a longer list potentially, and that might so there is as set out at the top of the second page of the report. Sorry, Councillor Lynch.
I just wanted to ask a question about finances.
Yeah.
The 40,000, which was agreed and passed in 2015. Do I take it that is an annual sum that is given each year to the committee on Hertford Heritage Trail?
No, it was the amount at the time, and what is remaining. It was allocated from New Homes bonus funding, and there's 7,880.
So since 2015, we've had £7,180.60 sitting in a vault somewhere.
I mean, effectively, it's New Homes. We've discussed recently in connection with other things. This is New Homes bonus money, so it's not sort of the part of the revenue budget. But is that?
Well, I just wondered why, if it's been agreed and it's sitting there, that amount, why the Heritage Group can't access it
It's not a heritage group. It's us as a council deciding what we want. It's our trail. We worked with the Civic Society previously on getting the plaques up, but it's not a group as such. It's us as a council to decide what we want to do.
The money still can be used for activities or monuments or remembrance or whatever. I mean, what is the scale of what it can be used for? Is there is it just anything or anything sensible, of course?
No, it was agreed that the money was agreed for the Hertford Heritage Trail at the time. I mean, we could clearly decide to spend more or less. It's entirely, it's our decision, but it's whether it's something that we would like to do and expand, consider whether we expand the trail as has been set out.
Yeah, I'm not being difficult. I just wanted to know, where the finances are. I totally supported, and just wondered, if it's the access can be gained, despite it being from the New Homes fund, with that amount. It's listed here as £7,180 and 60 pence, which, to my mind, reading it means it's available. It could be a little clearer in stating, that was the balance that was left, but it has to be resubmitted or whatever has to be done to gain access to it. Am I being difficult?
I think you're correct in that the money's available. I mean, Joseph, is there anything that you can just sort of allay any concerns on this?
It's available for the purposes for which it was allocated. That's the first thing. As has already been said, the management of the council's New Homes bonus reserve isn't tied into individual financial years like the precept raising and other income is, which we plan into our budget. So the New Homes bonus funding and expenditure sits separate to that, which is helpful in terms of flexibility and planning for things. The council can draw down that £7,180 for the purposes which the council decided it should be used at any time it chooses. So there's no time limit on getting it spent, but equally there's no obstacle to spending it as and when the council may choose to extend the heritage trail.
Okay,
thank you very much for that.
Okay, so I think the options set out in 4, I mean, they all seem worthy of consideration, but they probably do need further work. I don't think we're in a position to take a decision right now, and it might be that some further work, some of them feel more able to be pursued than others. And the QWERTY codes, I had seen that somewhere else, but it does depend. They were part of a plaque somewhere else. I'm not suggesting we add them, so it's whether the buildings that we've got as part of the scheme could accommodate something like that. So I think that these would generally need further work to look at them in more detail. I have also been, someone has expressed some concern that a couple of the plaques have got some incorrect information on, which I will share. I'm not sure. I was told the town clerk may be aware of this, but I'm not absolutely sure. So I will share this information, and it might be that we want to look at whether or not we need to replace them as part of if we are looking to do new plaques and get them redone at the same time. But this might be that different people have different views on historical information. So I think in terms of decisions on this, I think we're sort of all options still open. Is that, I mean, Melissa, do you think there's any decision that it's your report? Is there any decision that is particularly needed beyond sort of the general support?
No. So section 3.3, number 3 as a option to consider is for us to launch a marketing campaign as like a call to action to find out what other businesses or building owners of buildings are interested in registering their interest, and then a further report will go to DNL at the next committee with that list, along with feedback from the section 4.1 researching the cost of an app, QWERTY codes, reproducing the costs for reproducing and reprinting leaflets, and various other options for consideration.
Okay, Thank you. So I think the marketing sort of promotion of this might be a nice opportunity to, a lot of people are proud of the buildings that they're in, and that's how the two of the recommendations that we've already got here have come about. I know that some of the plaques that were put up last time around were the result of building owners wanting something to recognise the building that they were in. So I think the scope for sort of pride in our town's buildings in taking this forward. So are members happy for that to happen? Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. And then, as I say, I think the option 4 is a case of looking at those in a bit more detail, and it's quite possibly not all of them, but it's working out what's going to achieve the best results and be most viable. Okay, if that's all, thank you. So paper F is a Rock at the Castle, which will hopefully be able to take place in August. And so what's set out here is really asking us whether we want to do the same that we've done in over the last however many years, in going out and inviting local charities to apply to be, or local bodies to apply to be the charity, and then they fill in the form, and then we consider those applications at the next meeting. So it's whether we want to go down that route or something different. Any comments?
Well, the local charities are a very good cause and very worthy of supporting. Maybe we could, if we were going to look at having a little bit of a mix, and perhaps some of the charities, although I know you'd have to say one and not the other, but however, we could make a sort of a split in the middle and have something like food, different foods from different countries, that sort of thing. I don't know whether that would be something that would go alongside the local charities.
Okay, Councillor Deering.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, very much with my this year's mayor hat on, that obviously obviously, just to remind people, I've got 2 mayor's charities this year. And one of the real negatives about this year as the mayor is it's been incredibly difficult to raise any money for either of them. I stand to be corrected, but I fear that we may not have raised any money at all for either of them. Just to go back a couple of items, we did the other day have a very nice virtual conversation with each of my charities, which at some point in the not too distant future, I think is going to go out on YouTube. So, we're not ignoring them, but I don't think we've raised any money. Joseph will correct me, or Nick. So I just wonder whether this year we might think about adopting the mayoral charities as charities for Rock of the Castle. I acknowledge that's not what we've done in the past, but in all the circumstances.
So, Councillor Bolton.
I really like that idea. I think that's a really, really good idea. Yeah.
So just to be clear, though, are we talking? We're talking the current charities, because we'll be in a different civic year by that point. So are you proposing that we're adopting a specific?
Okay, that's fair point. To be fair, I haven't quite registered that. That's a very fair point. Well, I don't. It's for discussion amongst the group, but it is the case, unless Joseph is going to speak up. I don't think we've raised a penny for either of our charities. If we can do something, and on the basis, on the basis that actually historically we generally have a different charity for Rock at the Castle, there would be nothing to stop us carrying forward this year's mayoral charities to be the charities for Rock at the Castle. And then there might be different mayoral charities next year. So that would kind of be normal as well, wouldn't it?
So just to be clear, in case anyone's not aware, that's Isabel Hospice and the Samaritans. Councillor Barber, was that what you were going to ask?
Sorry, yeah, that's what I was going to ask. It is that local to Hertford though? So is it like the Samaritans that are based locally, or are we talking about?
Our local Samaritans have a physical office in Ware. It's in a residential area in Ware. I'm quite glad I had that conversation with them the other day. I sort of know what's going on now. But they are.
So they're local to this area. So if we're talking about Samaritans, you're talking about Samaritans in the Ware.
Yes, I was going to go and say, Sue, that they explained to me and through me, the viewers on YouTube, that apparently every single Samaritan's operation is independently funded. They're not funded centrally. So each individual Samaritan's office has got to raise money. And, you know, they need to raise quite a lot of it. And exactly the same applies to Isabel Hospice. So, yeah, they're local.
I mean, going on obviously from what you were saying, and I kind of agree with Councillor Bowden that, you know, this year's been exceptional as far as trying to fundraise for the mayor's charities. And I'm sure that any next mayor or whoever he or she may be, you know, wouldn't be put out by having the fact that we are still raising money for a charity, and maybe have an additional person, you know, an additional charity if you're going into the next mayoral year. So you could have, like, maybe instead of having 2, having 3, so that the next mayor could say, well, obviously this would be like to be mine, and then that kind of carries on. So you'll, you know, carry it on throughout the next mayoral year.
I mean, I'm certainly happy to support the idea that those 2 charities are adopted. I think we could confuse things if we get onto additional, because we wouldn't normally be supporting the mayor's charity, but it feels like this has been done on a basis of an exceptional circumstance, that over the past year those 2 charities haven't been able to benefit from fundraising at our events program, apart from anything else that would normally happen. So from on that, I'd be supportive on that basis. Melissa, sorry.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention that I just trying to think, I think it's a lovely idea, how it would work on the actual day, because we have the charity volunteers on all of the entrances collecting funding. So whether it would be a case that we still request those, if this did go ahead, the 2 charities to fundraise on all of the gates, or would they have set gates themselves, or would all of the money that's collected then be split in half between the 2 charities?
Fair comment.
Just something to consider.
Yeah, I mean, from my experience of the event, I would think it would be quite hard to I mean, it would be really nice, I would think, in an ideal world, for those 2 charities to agree to work together to contribute the same number of volunteers to collect money and to divide up the might raise, because I think otherwise it could get very complicated, and I suspect there are certain gates that are going to be much better at being able to, you know, just in terms of footfall, but that's perhaps something that would need consideration and discussion with the charities, because it would need the charities' involvement in order to make it successful. But they're both too big, you know, in the compared to some others, they're both charities with quite a lot of local supporters, so they should be able to generate people to take the opportunity. Is that fair, Councillor Deering? Has sort of thought?
Oh, sure. I mean, precisely how we do it is obviously for discussion, but that, yeah, I mean, that's a fair point. I hadn't thought about that either. It's a pretty fair point. I mean, you could either, you know, to put it in simplistic terms, you could either have a bucket that just says charity and everything that goes into the bucket gets split 50-50, or you could have a bucket that's got both the charities brand on it, or you could have different buckets working on the, you know, there's different ways to do it.
It feels like if we're agreeable to the idea in principle, it needs a separate meeting with those 2, with officers and perhaps the mayor and those and representatives of those 2 charities to discuss how it might work in practice, would be my.
Yeah.
Is everyone?
Sounds like a good idea.
Okay. Is everyone comfortable with going forward on that basis? Councillor doing that. Sorry, Councillor Gooding, rather. That's a yes, thumbs up rather than a hand up, and a thumbs up there as well. Okay, great. Thank you.
Jan had her hand up.
No, she was just doing thumbs up, I think was the yes.
Right.
Madam Chair,
Okay.
Can I just come in there? So just for the clarity, the committee is approving the appointment of the 2, so it's the Samaritans and the Isabel Hospice, who happen to be the current mayoral charities, as the recipients for the charity funds raised at Rock at the Castle, full stop. That's precisely it. Next year's mayor will choose charities in the normal way. Okay.
I think so, yes. And I think the other thing to note is this is an exceptional decision.
Absolutely.
It does not mean that next year we will be looking to do anything similar or the same. We might well choose to revert to the process whereby everyone can apply to be, and that's probably important to note as well.
Indeed, and the thorough conversation which will be recorded in the minutes will explain all of that. So that's very helpful. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. Okay, so paper G is hire of venues, which is obviously another difficult area at the moment, but again, hopefully looking better with the lifting of the restrictions. And I know that there have been inquiries through on events in the last couple of weeks. So this is a report to note. Is there anything that anybody wishes to say on it, or ask or comment? Otherwise, we will thank officers for what, and particularly Jackie, for what has, this has been a really challenging area over the last year, particularly in terms of all the events that haven't been able to take place and the conversations that have had to happen as a result. And I know that she's continued to work really hard to try and get bookings moved and into the future. So hopefully things will be looking a bit brighter on this front once we get to the next committee meeting. Okay, thank you. So the next paper is paper H, which covers CCTV and taxi marshalling. If we can, so this is the paper where we have lots of statistics that we can only really guess at some of the things behind them, but they are there. And if there were any particular questions, then I'm sure officers could follow up if there was anything that anybody particularly wanted to understand. Joseph, I note on the CCTV that there'll be a verbal update on the CCTV discussions on the management of them. Are you able to do that?
In terms of the future management and the work we're doing, yeah, absolutely. So this is sort of around the information that's on paragraph 3.4 onwards to the end of the section. So the council, as I'm sure you'll all recall, undertook a decision to work collaboratively with Ware and Bishop Stortford town councils to seek the external procurement and appointment of a contractor to manage the networks in those three towns, excluding public car parks owned by the district council going forward. It's been unfortunately a prolonged process. We are slowly getting there in terms of information that's important to receive in terms of the current situation with our current arrangements, in order to be clear that the documentation that goes out for the procurement is clear, and the officers across those three councils have fully researched everything that's needed. We did get some information in late this afternoon, which pretty much answers the final point that we were waiting for. So what do we know? It's 1st of March today. So during the month of March, I can say I am reasonably confident that we'll be able to go out to the market, which is the part 2 step of the. We initially did some market testing, and we got some responses, and that helped shape and sharpen up the understanding, certainly, of officers in the availability of what's around in the market for CCTV network management and monitoring of the images, etc., etc. So we are making progress, and we should get there in terms of the procurement exercise to start during this month, and then we'll obviously take it back to the appropriate committee for a decision.
Okay, thank you. Can I just check that the timing of any committee meetings? I mean, obviously, we're relying on a number of councils here, and I suppose what I would be saying is that if there is a need to hold any special committee meetings in order to not delay the process further, I would be in favour of doing that if it's necessary.
That's very helpful, Madam Chair. Obviously, the coordination across the three councils, which an identical report really does need to be taken to in terms of an identical decision in terms of the contract to be engaged with and signed, etc. But that's very helpful. I'll certainly bear that in mind, and obviously will advise councillors if a special is needed at the earliest opportunity in terms of advance notice, etc., etc.
Thank you, Councillor Lynch.
Just a question on taxi marshals. 6.1. The council continues through its funding to recognise the value of the taxi marshal scheme. to the nighttime economy and to help provide to visitors. I'm just wondering what funding, if any, goes to the taxi marshals. I don't see anything there, but it almost indicates that they are given something. So I just really would like to know what it is. I'm not objecting. I know how valuable the job they do.
I believe it might be 10,000 in the budget, but we were not paying it all at the moment. Joseph, do you know the?
The contract for the current financial year, we let the taxi marshal contract on an annual basis because of the 50% funding that comes from Hertfordshire County Council, which is only renewed on a yearly basis. The contract value for the current year, was around £19,000, of which the town council pays 50%. As Councillor Sartre has just said, the provision of marshals, as we all know, would have been intermittent this year because of the lockdown situation. But no, that expenditure is in the council's budget, and the council will be taking a further decision through the Finance Policy and Administration Committee at its next meeting for the award of the contract for financial year 2021-2022.
Yeah,
just to continue on that one question, the individual taxi marshals, how do you fund them, and what is the rate per hour or per day or whatever? I'm just curious to know how we assess it and how we fulfill it.
We assess it on the service offer that the appointed contractor is then engaged upon. Those are the terms upon which they're engaged. So the last year's FP&A report I can send you when we're finished today, but in a week, at the end of this week, you'll get next year's contract award as part of the FP&A papers that'll be published this coming Friday. Obviously, the taxi marshal contract is a private paper, but councillors will receive all of those papers this coming Friday. So by all means, if once you've read that, Councillor Lynch, you've got any queries or questions for me in terms of how these things are put together, then please, we can certainly have a discussion to try and answer your queries.
Thank you very much.
And it's probably just worth saying that this is it's a contract for a professional company with people with the right whatever it is, license of some nature that they need, isn't it, Joseph? Well,
absolutely, absolutely. They're appropriately trained. That the company ensures that the marshals have appropriate accreditation. My own view, at the time I've been at the council, that our taxi marshal company have performed generally very well, and the police. The only feedback I've ever had from the police in terms of the current operator has always been very positive.
Yeah, no, it's generally been a service that we've received very positive, including, particularly from the police, I think, who find it in normal times very helpful. Okay, anything further on that report? Otherwise, we will note it. Probably just worth on recommendations. We're noting the CCTV report and the taxi marshalling aspects as well. Okay. So I think now I've just spotted, which is the one I more is a danger of missing, planning subcommittee minutes. So we are receiving, if everyone's happy to do so, the minutes of the planning subcommittee meetings between the 14th of December and the 15th of February, which have been previously circulated. Can I have a show of hands if members are happy to receive those? Thank you very much. Right. Now, next up is the reconsultation on waiting restrictions in Railway Street. And this is about, there's a map that shows where double yellow lines are going in. And I had concerns on this, that the building that's particularly affected potentially is the Friends Meeting House. So I've been in touch with them today. And if you just give me a second just to read a sort of part of this email, just because I think it sets out quite clearly, they are quite concerned with what's being proposed, that they need access to two buildings, which on this map are number 48, which is the Friends Meeting House, and number 50, which is the small hall next to it. And they say, in addition to it being used for our regular Sunday worship, it is used for other services, meetings, concerts and other performances. Parking has become very tricky for us since Birchley Green car park closed. On Sundays, some of the Friends park on the other side of the road, and they say that none of us park on their building side of the road, as they're aware this causes problems for buses, which I think is largely why this has come about. If our side of the road also has no loading or unloading, this will be a huge problem. We have friends with mobility problems who need to be dropped off by the gate, even if their driver parks elsewhere. In addition, other users need to stop outside in order to drop off large instruments or equipment for concerts. This is part of a long email, so they go on to set out, they've got various other groups that use the building, including the Hertford Muslims for Friday prayers, U3A and others that need the access. So they're very concerned about a blanket stop on access to the to those buildings, which I believe is what this proposal would result in at the moment. So I just that just felt worth sharing. Councillor Bolton.
Do they say whether those events that they need access for are every day of the week, or are they mostly Sunday?
It's a variety of days. So it's, yes, because it's different groups. I mean, they've listed quite a number of groups that use it, use the hall as well. Right, because I know that the main reason for doing it because of buses, the access and egress of buses, but there are fewer buses, I think, on a Sunday. Councillor Ruffles will criticise me if I'm wrong. And so I wondered if it could be relaxed on a Sunday, but... Yeah, and they're also concerned there's a piece of land where the electricity substation is sited, where they used to load or unload, and on the map it's shown as well as if that's like they like to lose the access. So I think they're very concerned that they are basically losing the potential to drop people or things off or pick them up. Councillor Dar.
On the map that we're looking at, there's a block in the middle of the road. I mean, is that part of the problem? If it's like a bollard, does it need to be there? And would that, if it was removed, would that make it easier for the bus to get round any cars that are parked?
Is it a crossing point? It's always hard to visualise, isn't it, when you think about something that does anyone remember? Is that a... Yeah, I think it's a sort of a bollard, an island for crossing, I think.
I think so too.
There's still the loading bay outside Halfords, isn't there? And at some point, we know the Birchley Green car park will reopen, but obviously we don't have a date for that.
No, and I still think that doesn't solve, because obviously that's still quite a walk for in terms of people that can't walk very far, or for dropping off and picking up very large instruments and the like, which is what their concern is. She does mention the bollards. The loading bay. Yeah, she says they can use it if it's empty, but in the evening in particular, it's used by people picking up the from the pizza company nearby. So yeah, I felt this was worth asking the question, and obviously, and the concerns were more extensive than I'd expected. So I don't know whether, if we can. I mean, my hope would be that we can feed back these concerns. I don't know whether there's another option that could be considered that would allow, I don't know, sort of the few minutes that are needed, but at the moment the restrictions as they're set out, I understand, don't have any room for manoeuvre. Any thoughts? Or are people happy to go with setting out those concerns? Councillor Barber.
I kind of agree with what Councillor Dar was saying about possibly looking into where that bollard is, and if it is a bollard or an ease of crossing, maybe try and move that somewhere, so that you're talking maybe on the corner of going into South Street. Yeah, it's wider there, isn't it, between the public house and the new photography place that's just opening. Yeah, and possibly if they need somewhere to cross, they could cross there. You've already got the existing entry into the Birchley Green not Old People's Home, but the home there. You've got a set of gates there. I'm kind of loath to block it off completely, because they do have a lot of, as you say, different people going in. They have like spiritualist meetings, they have clairvoyance, they have bits and pieces to obviously get money into their coffers, really, to make them more self-sufficient. I'm not keen on actually making it all no parking at all, to be honest. I don't think it's helping them in any way, especially as coming out of this pandemic, they're going to be looking to try and increase their revenue. I mean, I don't know how they're surviving at the moment. I don't think this is particularly good policy for us to recommend, to be honest.
Yeah, no, and they do talk about one option that is being under consideration for someone to use it, but that they would lose that opportunity if this was to come into force.
Don't forget, Sundays are very much, and Hartford's got enough churches that are frequently attended in the mainstream when the pandemic is not as it is, and cars do on Sunday tend to be quite prolific actually around the town, right down from St. John's Church all the way going down that round down to the Hague. They're always full of cars, and you've just got then the Friends Meeting House not too far away. So there's always, it's Sunday particularly, I think that's important to them. I know there's other areas when they're raising funds, but it's certainly worth considering that to be blocking people attending worship simply because there isn't space for them to park is not something I'd be keen to be part of.
No, but that would also be the case, just to be clear, for Fridays as well, because it's used by, as she said, by Hartford Muslims for Friday prayers. So I think that's Councillor Bolton.
I think we ought to raise concerns and voice our concerns, and we can mention Councillor Dar's suggestion about, is that island necessary anymore? I think we should raise concerns. They probably won't listen to us, but it's important to raise them.
Yeah, Councillor Barber.
Also, I was just obviously considering that what's going on from what Councillor Lynch was saying is if you're on about making double yellow lines everywhere, you've got to consider the area going round to Hartford East Station, where you've got, again, when there's worship going on, they park on both sides of the road, right the way around the corner, almost to the mini roundabout by Mill Road, in Hartford East Station, and then you get the buses coming round there. They can't get through, and you can't get cars either. So we're making it more and more difficult by having it all double yellows. I mean, if you stop there, why not carry all the way around the corner, both sides? And then
you're breaking up a little, Sue, at the moment.
You're singing, Sue.
So,
Okay, I think we got the gist of that. Yeah, we were breaking up, but I think we got your main points there. So I think so perhaps if officers, I can certainly share the sort of the key detail as well from this email, if that would help. And I did urge the lady as well. I think she'd had some problems submitting views, and I did. The deadline is a few days off, so there is still time for them to set out their concerns as well. So is everyone happy that we respond on that basis and sort of looking at are there other options, including the island, but also, I just don't hope whether there's anything else that could be considered as well that would still allow for that for that need to be able to drop off and collect people and large objects. Is that all okay? Yes, Councillor Dar.
Just one more other idea, because what we specifically are trying to talk about is we're trying to make it possible for people with disabilities to arrive at the Quaker Church, that whether there's any options to add in spaces that are allocated to them for that there, and that are not then used by people going to the gym or other places or the pizzas, which they should walk further.
Madam Chair, can I just show you a photograph of the island, because you can see. Can you see that?
Up a bit.
No.
Up a bit, down a bit?
No, up, but it's kind of white, it's kind of light. Oh, yes, with you, yeah.
Okay, that's the island in question.
Come closer.
Okay. Yes, I can see why that's causing a problem.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, well, that seems worth worth exploring, hopefully. Councillor Brady.
Something that highways will have.
Sorry, John, Councillor Brady first, and then I'll
I beg your pardon.
Councillor Brady.
Well, I think when we get back to what will be normal, buses will be just as poorly populated as they were prior. And I think looking forward, we've got to think about smaller buses, mini buses, so that buses can get through these types of situations. We've had a situation like this on Seal, where the buses have stopped running because of cars parking. So now we've got the yellow lines and the buses can run as well. So we must continue to be able to accommodate people that are more environmentally friendly and will use buses. So yes, we must allow buses to get through, and our buses are far too big because they're always empty, half empty. But that's for the future. So I agree with.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yes, and I think there is a sort of shift towards smaller buses, but obviously it is really important they can get through any size. Councillor Lynch.
I just wanted to say that the removal of that bollard, or the little roundabout there, will that have to go through highways?
It's all for highways, I'm afraid. None of this is in our gift.
That doesn't fill me with great hope. But
and there might be a very good, I think we do need to realise as well that we've got Birchley Court on the other side, so it may be seen that this is a safe, is a crossing point that's needed in order for people to cross the road safely. But let's put it forward, and I think it's a more general. Is there another way of doing this, or a way of enabling the Friends Meeting House and their next door building to be able to continue to function?
Good, excellent. Thank you.
Okay, if that's all on that, we'll move on to paper J, which is the two neighbourhood area plans and their next step. And this is looking to us to endorse the final version of them. Joseph, is there anything that you want to say on this, as your name's on this paper?
Other than it's a really important milestone and the culmination of a fabulous amount of work across both communities, driven by the community over 3 to 4 years, and it's just a really great point that both of those projects have reached.
Yeah. Anyone else have anything they wish to say? So the referendum for these then would take place on the 6th of May, alongside other elections in those 2 wards. And I'm also just noting that in the report, sorry, Councillor Dar first.
Can I ask the question? Is there any need for marketing around the election, so that, I mean, it'd be awful if only a few people voted and they all voted against the plan after everyone's hard work. So I don't know how that gets promoted.
Joseph, are you able to comment at all on this process? And
obviously, we've got to be very careful leading up to the election in terms of communication of certain types. I am just researching with other clerks who are in the same position across the country of how best to do this. I mean, it's absolutely right. It would be a shame if the interest was missed because of other things going on, but certainly in terms of I won't use the word promotion, but in terms of, and publicity, got to be careful using that word as well, but in terms of making it known that the referendum is taking place, that is certainly something the officers can certainly and will be able to do, very much so.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Deering.
Is there not some obligation to make sure that the public are aware of this coming?
There's probably an implied obligation. I'm not sure around, I'm not sure there's any statutory obligation, but my colleagues at East Herts Planning may enlighten me to that in the coming days. But there's certainly an implicit need to make sure that people know that this vote is coming along. Certainly, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the worst thing that could, it would be awful if people get into to polling stations or get their ballot papers through the post and they don't have any understanding of what it's about. So I think that is clearly important. that there is an awareness of that in whatever way is possible.
There isn't enough exposure and publicity given. You catch snatches of it here and there on the paper, but there's no TV, you know, about the importance of the filling in of the, I've lost the word now, sorry.
Ballot paper.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think if we can, I think there's a general view that yes, so if something, whatever can be done ought to be done in terms of an awareness raising. So if we can leave that with the town clerk and with that kind of steer. Okay.
Yeah, I've forgotten what's the other thing running alongside of it? The census, isn't it? That's coming along as well, isn't it?
But that's sooner. That's this month. So that will be have happened by then.
Sorry, I'm just having a mash-up at the moment.
Okay. So I think we need sort of the vote here on that the committee endorses the final versions of these two area plans, and I think also thanks everyone for the work, and the town clerk noted the work of our appointed planning consultant Jacqueline Vita as well, and there's obviously been an enormous amount of volunteer work from all you know, many numbers of people in the community and councillors and others. So. Can I see a show of hands for endorsing those final versions? Okay, thank you very much. So we move on to paper K, which is the objectives, and we've covered quite a lot of the detail of some of these as we've been going along, and other obviously in certain places it's been not quite as easy over the past year to progress some of these. Does anybody have any questions or comments on these? Otherwise we will note these and I think note that it's good to see that progress is being made as far as possible in these challenging times, so thank you for that. Okay, and I think this is and finally, yes, it's the third quarter income and expenditure, which is obviously not such a happy tale because the Development and Leisure Committee, as we've been probably increasingly established, is significant income generator in better times, which hasn't been obviously as possible over the past year, and hopefully we'll be turning a corner on that soon, but the figures are clearly set out here, and this again is a report to note. So are there any questions on any of this?
Probably not the right place to bring this up, but on the 4.4, going down through the various, just seeing the CCTV, there was a point before the pandemic where we were going to go to the headquarters in Stevenage to have an overview of how it all works. I just want to just mention it so it's not forgotten when all this dies down, that we still have that same opportunity.
I would hope that is the case, and the town clerk is nodding. So yes, yeah, once that becomes possible again, and hopefully if we are able to progress with the direct management of them, that will become even more important. Okay, anything else? Sort of final chance. So otherwise, thank you, officers, for all your work on these reports. Very best wishes to Melissa for the next few weeks and months ahead. And
where is Melissa? She's gone.
There, she's there. Yeah.
Where? I can't see her.
Bottom of my screen. I don't know where.
Is there? Oh,
there you are, Melissa. You dropped off for a minute.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, everybody, and have a good rest of the evening.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Bye.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you, Catherine. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.